Hey mom, welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel. On this channel, I'll talk about everything family, health, pregnancy, and lifestyle. And on this episode, we'll be telling you in detail how to calculate your menstrual cycle for someone with a regular cycle length. Yes, we're going to break it down in all the teeth. First, before calculating your menstrual cycle, you have to understand what the menstrual cycle is all about. What are the terminologies we'll talk about when we're talking about the menstrual cycle? Then calculated from the first day of your menstrual cycle to the day before your next period. Meaning, if your day one of your period could be the day you started seeing your first period flow, and that cycle will end on the day before your next period. That leaves you with your cycle length, which is the number of days in between each of your periods. For persons with regular and irregular cycle lengths, we are considered to have a regular cycle length if your cycles are not variant from month to month. For example, in January you have a 26-day cycle, in February you have a 28-day cycle, in March you have a 27-day cycle. We'll consider you with someone with a regular cycle length because it is not a variant. And then the second category, when we're calculating the menstrual cycle, is women with variant cycle lengths. Variant cycle length simply means that your cycle length changes from month to month. For example, in January you have a 28-day cycle, in March you have a 35-day cycle, in April you have a 25-day cycle. We consider it for someone having variant cycle length, right? And your period is the number of days within which you see your flow, which is basically the time when your uterine lining breaks down, right? And you see your menstrual discharge, which is considered as your period. And it ranges within a period of 3 to 5 days, right? Analogy is ovulation. Ovulation is simply when an egg is being released, which typically occurs on the 14th, not 14 days after your period or 14 days from when you see your period, but 14 days before your next period. Yes, ovulation does not occur on the 14th, as you may assume. Ovulation simply occurs on the 14th day before your next period, right? Not on the 14th day of your period, on the 14th day before your next period. Since you have the background knowledge about what a menstrual cycle length is all about, cycle length, how to know if you have a regular or a variant cycle length, the number of periods days, and you have calculated for the last 6 months, you now know your cycle length, if it's regular or it's irregular. Once you now know that, the next thing you want to know is you want to calculate your fertile window. Yes, you will obviously need to know your fertile window because if you're trying to get pregnant, this is the period where you use hormone early to be able to get your result of pregnancy. And if you're trying to avoid pregnancy, this is the period when you want to go as further as possible away in order to reduce your chances of getting pregnant. If you're trying to get pregnant, of course, this is the period where you have to do everything in the book to increase your chances of getting pregnant. How do you calculate your fertile window? First, you get your cycle length. We're using for the case of someone with 26-day cycle. And remember, we said ovulation typically occurs on the 14th day before your next period. So you take the 26 minus 14, which is to give you a date, which is 12, right? So if you're having a 26-day cycle, it simply means ovulation occurs for you on the 12th, not on the 12th day from the day you see your period, but equally on the 12th day before your next period. That's why we took the number of days of the cycle length minus a 14. So on the 12th day of your period, that is when you are most likely to ovulate. But remember, we want to have a fertile window, right? And it cannot just be a day because an egg can last for over 48 hours, and the male sperm can last for as long as 5 days. It can go as less as 3 days, but sperm can typically last up to 5 days in the female system. This gives you a window. Once you have that number, you simply add 2 days before your ovulation day and 3 days after your ovulation day is going to give you 5 days. Those days, as you can see on your screen, that is when you are most likely to get pregnant. So if you're avoiding pregnancy, you have to go as far away from these days as possible. And if you're trying to get pregnant, these are the days where you have to increase your mating with your partner in order to increase your chances of getting pregnant. And if you're trying to get pregnant, you have to come as close as possible to your ovulation day, right? And if you're not trying to get pregnant, you have to go as far away from your ovulation day as possible. And when calculating your menstrual cycle, one thing you have to know is ovulation is not static. That's why when we talk about ovulation, we say that is the day when the egg is most likely to be released. Because from 1 month you can ovulate on the 12th, the next month you can ovulate on the 13th, the other month you ovulate on the 11th, which is still completely normal and it is still completely within range. If you have someone with regular cycle length, you see, just have to use this same technique as was used to be able to calculate your menstrual cycle length. Your menstrual cycle, if you have a 28-day cycle, you simply take 28 minus 14, it gives you 14, which simply tells you that you're most likely to ovulate on 14, right? You add 2 days before and 2 days before and 3 days after, and for your ovulation you put minus or plus 2, right? You can either occur 2 days before your ovulation, 2 days after your ovulation, or on the exact day you have for your 28-day cycle. So this is simply how you calculate your menstrual cycle for someone with regular cycle length, right? Someone who has a consistent number of days in between the periods, right? Generally you have 26 days and so on and so forth, and they are regular. Once they are regular, this is a technique you use in calculating your menstrual cycle, and you can use it to be able to get pregnant or as well as prevent a pregnancy using this calendar method. If you have any questions on calculating your menstrual cycle for some of the regular cycle lengths, do well to drop your comments in the box. I'll be able to reply to all of your comments. If you are having a variant cycle length, leave a comment in our box so we'll drop a video about how to calculate your menstrual cycle if you have variant cycle length. If you're at the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. We can't wait to see you in our next video. Bye.